I'm going to try to get through these as fast as we can, because there's a lot of cards, 250 cards or something. We're probably going to try not to spend more, like on stuff that we're not going to do a lot with constructed wise. We're just not going to spend a lot of time on them. You know, we're just going to kind of say, hey, this is a limited card, most likely, not something you want to play in constructed. Boom, we're going to go to the next one. The stuff we can play in constructed, we'll talk a little bit more about some ideas and things we can do with it, because I think that's actually pretty important. First off, let me tell everybody, pay some love. There's a dude who's like a part-time creator. He's got a day job, but his name is November Lima. You can find him on Twitter. You can find him on YouTube. He's the one who actually put this deck together so I could have all these files. Like, I was already going to do some of this work. He was going to try to do a set review, and something happened where he couldn't. He was nice enough to loan me his deck and save me the trouble of having to put this together. So pay some love to November Lima if you haven't. Go say hello to him. Go follow his YouTube. Go follow him on Twitter. Good dude. He helped me out, made life a little bit easier, and this has a nice presentation to it. So save me trouble. And so I appreciate anybody who can save me some effort. So anyway, let's get into the cards. Let's see what we got. We're starting with Angelic Observer. It's a 6 mana, 3/3. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each citizen you control and flying. You're probably not going to play this. Like, even if you have a citizen deck, I mean, you're talking about having to have like 3 citizens out or 4 citizens out to just get a 3/3 flyer. And that's not that exciting. There's going to be other things. Like, there's other just flyers you would rather play for 3, 4, 5 mana, probably, that's going to be more useful than this, other than just being a flyer. A neat card, and in limited, this will probably have some uses, because, you know, a 3/3 body is still reasonable if you get it on the cheap. But for constructed, we're not going to do a whole lot with it. Backup Agent is a colorless and a white for a 1/1. When Backup Agent enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Again, this is a limited card. We've had versions of this pretty much a couple times a year, it feels like. Something comes into play, put a +1/+1. Usually a 1/1, 1/2 type creature. Not really much to talk about there. Ballroom Brawlers. Ballroom Brawlers is a 5 mana, so 3 white, 3/5 human warrior. When Ballroom Brawlers attacks brawlers and up to 1 other target creature you control, both gain your choice of first strike or lifelink until end of turn. A very weirdly worded card, because it sounds like they both gain either first strike or lifelink. You can't have one have first strike and one have lifelink if that's worded the way I think it is. That being said, it is a 5 mana 3/5, which, again, in constructed play, it's not really what you're looking for. At 5 mana, especially in current standard, we're looking at like Planeswalkers, high-end removal cards. It's like all kinds of other things other than this. This isn't really what you want. Even from a creature, there's just so many better things you could be doing at 4, 5, and 6 mana. So I wouldn't give this any real concern. Boon of Safety. It's an instant, 1 white, put a shield counter on target creature. Scry 1. This is interesting. This is one I would largely say, like, we're not going to play this in constructed. But the more you look at it, hey, thanks for the follow there, by the way. Like, the more you look at this type of card, it actually very well could be constructed playable. Because think about it right now. We're playing a lot of decks where we're trying to squeeze in Tameo Safekeeping or whatever. The other one you put a +1/+1 and give it hexproof, right? But they're both green cards. This kind of sort of does what you want that to do, right? Now, admittedly, this only protects creatures and you don't get the +1/+1, but you do get to scry. And if you can protect this from like a Doomscar or the new Wrath of God thing, we'll get to that in a little bit. But like, there are some new sweepers that people will likely be playing, and this can protect your creatures from that. Also, this effectively gives a creature indestructible for 1 combat step, you know? Hey, Bad Boy Smooth for 5 months. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, we're just getting started here on this set preview. So we're going over the whole set. We're in the white cards right now. So you're here just in time. Broker's Initiate. 1 mana, 0/4. You can pay 5 mana. It becomes a 5/5 till end of turn. Definitely not playing this in constructed. It's passable in limited. Not something you really want to play unless you're heavy on citizens. But yeah, not the most exciting card. Buy Your Silence. 4 colorless and a white. Sorcery. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a treasure token. This is a limited removal card that's actually pretty solid. Hey, thanks for subscribing, Flow. That's actually a very cool name. Actually, looks like Flo. I actually said that wrong. But thank you. So this is a card, obviously we're not going to play this in constructed. It's 5 mana for a removal card, and we have so many better removal cards we can play. But in limited, this is actually somewhat reasonable, and the downside is you give them a treasure, but you don't really care if you're getting rid of their best thing. And it is also a non-land permanent. It's not a creature, so that makes a big difference too. So limited playable for sure, just not in constructed. Celebrity Fencer, 3 colorless and a white for 3/2. Elf Druid has Alliance. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Celebrity Fencer. This one I'm on the fence on. I am going to say this is not what we're going to be playing in constructed. However, if we build some weird deck where Alliance is the keyword and everything has Alliance or makes a token or whatever, maybe. The fact that it costs 4 mana for a 3/2 to start, though, is a little bit disappointing. For 4 mana, if it was at least like a 3/3 or it costs 3 mana and was a 3/2 or whatever, I'd like it a whole lot more. But I think as is, we're really not going to play this very much. But like I said, there could be some weird corner case deck where this makes a showing, but I would not be leaning on this card to do real work, honestly. If you're building a constructed deck that has to do with Alliance, I would kind of put this in the 3rd tier of cards you might be looking at including. Citizen's Crowbar, colorless and a white. Equipment, when Citizen's Crowbar enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 citizen, and then attach the crowbar. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has pay a white, tap this, sacrifice the crowbar, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It equips for 2. It's a little bit weird because you can equip it and you're just moving a 1/1 around. So that's fine, not great. I mean, it is a 2 mana for a 2/2 and it happens to be a citizen. So that alone could be the reason you play it. Obviously, you lose your bonus whenever you use this, but if you have to use it, that's fine. I don't really see what the issue is. But, I mean, a 2 mana 2/2 is mediocre, but this one at least comes with an ability. And you get the citizen token. So I think if the citizen deck thing is real, this is at least playable. But that's about it. I don't think in non-citizen token decks, you're probably not going to be playing this card. But it at least has one deck where you'll likely look at it. Dapper Shieldmate. 3 colors and a white for a 2/2. Dapper Shieldmate enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. As long as it's your turn, Dapper Shieldmate has +2/+0. So you get a 4/2 on your turn and a 2/2 on everybody else's turn. It comes in with the shield counter. I mean, that sounds exciting. Those are words that are cool, but we're not playing this in constructed. Even as a 4/2 on your turn, it's just not enough. We have so many other quality cards at 4 that you're just not wanting to play that. Depopulate. 2 colorless, white, sorcery. Each player controls a multicolored card. Creature draws a card, then destroy all creatures. Yeah, I don't even know why this card exists. I really don't. Like, is it a good card? Absolutely. Will it get played? Absolutely. It's just very weird that, like, the downside for letting this cost 4 is like, oh, look, you get to draw a card. Oh, wait, I get to draw a card too, potentially. So it's just like, I hate that this card exists, but you could damn well be sure this is going to get some run and constructed for sure. Like, there's no questioning this. This card will get played. So what if you're giving somebody a card? If you potentially are also getting one, and you get to, like, just stop everything from beating you early for just 4 mana. Elspeth Resplendent. 3 colorless, white, 5 loyalty, +1, choose up to 1 target creature, put a +1/+1 counter on the creature, and a counter for flying, first strike, lifelink, or vigilance. -3, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You can put a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield with a shield counter on it, put the rest on the bottom, and then -7, make 5 3/3 angels. This card, like, part of me says we have other things we want to play, right? If we're playing black-white, we have, like, Kaya, whatever. We've got Wandering Emperor. You're already probably going to be playing, like, Sorens or Lolth. Like, do we want this card? However, hey, Autopix. However, it's still not bad. The fact that you can go find something and just put it into play and it gets a shield counter, meaning that ultimately you're getting something that's got indestructible for a turn, mostly, that's pretty damn good. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real ability. So you get to play this and then go find something. And it's not only that, it's a permanent. that cost 3 or less, not even just a creature. And I think that gives it a little bit more value. Also, the top ability is actually not bad. To plus and just put a +1/+1 on something, and then you can give it flying, first strike, whatever, right? That's pretty big too, especially late in the game. If you already have a big attacker or something, and you're like, okay, cool, now I'm just going to give it vigilance so I can attack and keep blocking or something. Now, is this greater than a lot of the other Planeswalkers we can play? I don't necessarily think so, but we do know there's going to be decks that care about having different types of counters on, or shield counters or whatever, and this does do that. So, as much as I want to downplay Elspeth Resplendent, there could realistically be a couple of decks that this is the card we actually want from a Planeswalker's perspective. So, and let's be honest, like, it's not that hard to get to the -7, right? Like, if you're worried about the opponent sweeping the board, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to play Elspeth, give something a +1 in lifelink or whatever, or give something +1 in vigilance. And they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to meat hook your board. And you're like, great, here's 5 angels. You know what I mean? That's a real thing. So yeah, I'm not going to give it like super high marks, but I'm definitely going to say it's playable and will probably show up somewhere. Extraction Specialist, 2 colorless and a white for a 3/2 human rogue lifelink. When Extraction Specialist enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature can't attack or block for as long as you control Extraction Specialist. This card's just neat, man. I don't know. I mean, I guess the thought is they're trying to get the person out of harm's way, so as long as they're there, the person doesn't have to carry themselves, I guess, is the concept. But the fact that it comes in and you just get to return a creature is kind of cool, especially if you think about this. In the white decks, a lot of times that thing that's dead might be something like Luminarch Aspirant, right? So you bring that back, even if you're not attacking with it, you're still getting to put the +1/+1 on stuff. So you play the Extraction Specialist, get back that Luminarch Aspirant that just died last turn, and now you still have a 4/3 and a 1/1 for 3 mana. Like, those types of situations are going to come up, and it's actually going to be okay. Now, just as being a 3 mana card, it's not necessarily as good as like a Brutal Cathar or even a what's her name, Adeline or anything like that, right? Like, there's definitely other cards that are going to be better that you're going to include first. But having 1 or 2 of these as a late game recovery card, or even as a sideboard card against the heavy removal decks or whatever, you know, maybe this is a thing. I'm not going to say it's unplayable. I'm just not saying, I will say it's not one of the first picks you're going to put into the list. But I could see this having some room in some sideboard scenarios. Gathering Throng, 2 colorless and a white. Human Citizen, 3/1. When Gathering Throng enters the battlefield, you can search your library for any number of cards named Gathering Throng, reveal them, put them in your hand, and shuffle. You know, this is cute against discard decks, but again, for 3 mana, it's a Citizen. So if the again, we keep coming back to if the Citizen deck thing is real, maybe you care about everything being a Citizen or not. But realistically, it's 3 mana for a 3/1. Sure, you get other copies. I'm not going to say that's bad. Historically, we've played those cards. But a lot of times it happen to be stuff like birds or whatever that have some 1/1 and flying or whatever, right? 3/1 on the ground in a world that could be full of tokens is not necessarily the best thing you want to be trying to fight with. So, again, I'm not going to say this one's unplayable entirely, but if I had to put it on a 10-point scale, it's getting like a 2 or a 3, right? Like, it's reasonable, it's serviceable. You know, if you want to make sure you just have creatures post sweeper or whatever, sure, go ahead and cast it. You get to reload your hand. It's all fine and good. But it's not like Warrior Angel, right? Legion Angel, where you're getting you just have the stuff on the sideboard, so you're not having to give up that opportunity cost in the deck, right? There's no loss in there. But you're also getting a 4/3 flyer when you do that. You know, and that makes a big deal. And isn't that just like a couple mana more? Like, so it's like, you're getting so much more for casting a Legion Angel than you get out of this. So, I don't know. I'm again, could this show up somewhere? Sure, but I wouldn't be trying to force this into any deck list. Giada, Fawn of Hope, colorless and a white for a 2/2, legendary creature angel, flying, vigilance. Each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you already control. You can tap Giada and add 1 white, spend this mana only to cast an angel spell. Yeah, if angels are for real, this card's good. If angels are not for real, then this card's medium to bad. That's literally how this is. This card is dependent on if the metagame allows angels to be a thing, or we can find a build where angels are a thing. Is that a little easier in Historic or in like Pioneer? Yeah. And that could be where it is, and maybe this isn't necessarily a standard thing, because we don't have a ton of angels available in standard. We have enough that we can make it work, but not the first pick, really, right? But the ability to get counters for each other angel you control is significant, you know, because you're talking about then having angels that oftentimes have 3, 4, 5 toughness coming in with +2 or +3. That's going to put a really harsh clock on your opponent. So that could be a real thing. And yeah, I would say in Commander, this is cool. You have an angel commander you can play, but we kind of already had that. You know, we had several angels. So I don't know. It's a neat card though. And this is really dependent on if the archetype it's trying to push is actually competitively viable. And I don't know what that answer is, but this is going to depend on that. Because if it's not, unfortunately, it's a card that really doesn't go anywhere. Because just being a 2/2 vigilant flyer for 2 is nice, but that's not enough to make anybody want to play it. All right, Hallowed Fountain, 2 colorless and a white artifact. Pay 1 white, tap it. Untap a creature you control, make a 1/1 green-white citizen token. Pay 2 and tap it, untap 2 creatures you control, draw a card. Pay 5 and tap it, untap 15 tap creatures you control, you win the game. All right, so we've got a couple of ideas here with this. This obviously can work just in general. You can attack with things, untap things, draw cards, right? That seems fine. You can also like crew vehicles and then untap after crewing something, right? That's a thing. There's other cards that say tap creatures as part of this cost, whatever. And this lets you reuse this. So lots of small issues you can use with, and this does only cost 3. And I will say this for Hallowed Fountain, I feel like it's one of the cards in the set that's both overrated and underrated. Overrated because I think people are focusing too much in the sense that people are really focusing on the third ability, the 15 creatures. And the reality is, most of the time, you're going to be using ability 1 and 2 each turn, right? Whether that's to make more creatures, either for blockers or triggers or whatever, or you're just going to be drawing more cards to race to whatever your next kill thing is, or a defensive card to protect your board, or a board sweeper, or whatever the case happens to be, right? So I think this is it hurts me to say this, but I think this is actually playable. And here's the other thing. This could just be good enough to live in aggro decks. Like, this is a real conversation I haven't really had yet, but it's possible that, like, say I'm playing some Naya aggressive something or mono white aggro whatever, I just play 2 of these in my list, maybe 1, right? But each time I attack, if I don't have another spell or creature I want to use that turn, like, let's say my hand is Brutal Cathars and Apparitions and I don't have anything to remove, right? I don't have to waste my turn. I can go ahead and just untap some of my attackers and get a card at least. Like, that's actually reasonable. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the card an aggressive deck is looking for, obviously, but it's also not the worst thing. Hey, Avery, how's it going? So, if you're focusing on the first 2 abilities, I would say this is playable. If your goal is like, I'm going to make 15 things and do whatever, like, we have 82 sweepers in the format. 15 things, like, sure, it might happen every once in a while and be a Magic Christmas land, but it's just not going to happen most of the time. Let's be honest. It's just not. But the first 2 abilities are actually viable. I mean, hell, even if it's just untap, make an extra creature, sometimes that's going to be all you need, you know? So, yeah, oddly, yes, constructed playable, but for the first 2 abilities, not the third ability. Hold for Ransom, 1 colorless and a white. Enchanted creature can't attack or block and has pay 7, and Hold for Ransom's controller sacrifices it and draws a card. Activate only as a sorcery. This card's just not it. It's just not it. It's cute, it's limited viable, but that's about it. Right, we have so many other white cards that are just going to kill the thing, or we have better cards that do the pacifism type effect. Why even bother having a thing that, like, at some point in constructed play, that your opponent's just going to, you know, late in the game just untap, get rid of it, and, you know, great, you get to draw a card, but, like, whatever. Now you're having to deal with that problematic creature again. So yeah, not about this. Limited play, sure, if you really need a pseudo removal, this will get the job done. But for constructed, no way. Eliminator Virtuoso, a colorless and a white for a 1/1. Double strike. What was that? Heliod's Judgment outclasses. Well, there's a bunch of cards that outclass that last one. The Illuminator Virtuoso is a human rogue, double strike. When Illuminator Virtuoso becomes the target of a spell you control, it connives, which is draw a card, discard a card, put a +1/+1 on it. This is one that I kind of glossed over a little bit when it was first previewed, but I think this actually might be able to be played. And if you come back to decks like Magecraft, they're playing a lot of things that want to like target, pump, whatever. Well, it's very possible. Like you play what is it, Homestead Courage, where you put a counter and put a counter. Right? Now this thing's like a 5/5 and has double strike, on turn 3 coming at you. Like that's a real thing. There's other cards as well, but I mean that's just one of them. So I think if you have it in that kind of a build, this card could be legit. Not to mention if you already have like the cat that's pumping your team every spell you play, then like this thing also is getting double strike in the process. Like this probably has a home in that type of build. And then there were some weird Mardu ones for a little bit that were trying to play different things on their creatures. So like all viable stuff. And you're getting bonuses of the connive, right? So it's possible, not even just the +1/+1 you're putting on here, but you might be discarding other things that are also giving you a big creature. So it's possible that this could be, what, +2, plus another 2 is 5, double striking, and you have whatever other cards you filtered to for next turn. Like, I'm down. Like, this card, I think, actually is playable. Inspiring Overseer, 2 colorless and a white for 2/1 flying. Inspiring Overseer enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. I mean, it's an angel. Giada would like it, but I mean, a 3-mana 2/1, is that really? I mean, you get to gain a life and draw a card, so it's not the worst. But you start looking at like what else are you doing for 3 mana? You're doing like Righteous Valkyrie type stuff or whatever, right? Like this isn't even in the same category. So, it's fine. It's passable. It's playable. If I'm playing hardcore on the Angels, then I at least give it some consideration. But that's literally like the only deck I think I'm going to want this in. Kill Shot. 2 colorless and a white. Instant destroy target. Attacking creature. We've had variations of this throughout the years. Usually not constructed viable, but limited play, it's quite a quality card. Knockout Blow, 2 colorless and a white, instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a red creature. Knockout Blow deals 4 damage to target attacking your blocking creature, and you gain 2 life. Generally speaking, I would say this is usually the type of card that's going to be a sideboard card where you just play like 2 or 3 copies, and you want something against red decks. Hey, that villain Jay, y'all should check out his YouTube channel too. Yeah. Welcome with your party of 11. We're going through the white cards right now for New Capenna, and we're doing a full set review. So strap yourselves in. So yeah, this is the type of card you generally put into a sideboard for 2 or 3 copies if you're worried about mono red aggro or something like that. But this is bordering on playable for 2 reasons. I mean, main deck playable, right? Because 1, you're going to have a lot of multicolor decks, which means you're increasing the odds that there's going to be red creatures, right? So that's a thing. But it is also gaining 2 life, not just killing a thing by dealing 4. Now, the downside is you have like Iganjo and some other things that are already dealing damage to bigger creatures or to attacking creatures or whatever. So that's a thing. But like I said, I think this can border unplayable depending on what the format looks like. So I wouldn't write this one off because getting a 1 mana instant speed, deal 4 to a thing, draw 2 cards is legit. And like I said, with the 3 color decks being a thing and possibly even 4 color decks, you're probably going to have things you can hit with this. Oh, you like shield counters? Yeah, those could be really good with all the sweepers that are out there. Mage's Attendant, 2 and a white for 3/2 cat rogue. When Mage's Attendant enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 blue wizard token with pay 1, sacrifice this, counter target non-creature spell, unless its controller pays 1. Now, see, this comes as the problem, right? We were talking about the other 3 mana thing, even as a rare that like lets you get a creature back or whatever. This is also very good at 3 mana because it gets you an additional creature. So you get a 3/2 and a 1/1, and the 1/1 comes with a bonus on it that you can just force spike your opponent. So if they try to meat hook for 2 on turn 4, it's not going to be a thing. right? They need one more mana each turn, or else they don't get to do anything. So I'm kind of into this card. Now, I don't know where it fits, but I do feel like this could be a very useful card in a lot of situations, especially in decks that aren't going to have those types of, no access to blue or whatever. Also, think about this. This is like one more taxing card, right? We're talking about Elite Spellbinder, Thalia, wherever, and now Mage's Attendant or whatever, making all your stuff cost more. What's her name? Redane also fits in there. So this could be kind of like a for real, we start encroaching on the death and taxes type white deck for standard with so many things that are making your stuff cost more. Mysterious Limousine, 3 colorless, white, 4/4, vehicle, crew 2. When Mysterious Limousine enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to one other target creature until Mysterious Limousine leaves the battlefield. If a creature is put into exile this way, return each other card exiled with Mysterious Limousine to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this is kind of neat in the sense that you get to kind of shift what you have exiled if you want to. So it says up to 1, so you don't have to move anything. And it kind of rotates, right? So if you get something early, you can be like, okay, cool, that was neat, but I like your other creature now better. So you're going to dump out the other person in the limousine and bring the new person into it. All fine and good. It's cute. But it is 5 mana for 4/4 that still needs to be crewed. Granted, it's only 2, but it still needs to be crewed to do something. And the ability itself, while nice, isn't that big of a deal. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is exiling a thing and you have to fight to get it back. But do you really care all that much? I mean, it gets your best thing each time, like, sure, I suppose. But it just doesn't feel like the end of the world here. I'm not feeling it enough. I feel like I'm missing something on this because it almost barely feels rare worthy. Like, the mechanic makes it feel rare worthy, but the game impact probably isn't. Patch up. 2 colorless and a white. Sorcery, return up to 3 target creature cards with total mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is kind of a fun card, kind of a cute card, and actually a fairly useful card. It has 2 problems with it though. One, it's a sorcery, and then it's up to 3 things, but only 3 mana total. Like, that's not a lot. You're usually at best going to get 2, and that's if you have like a 1/1 that got wrecked. Otherwise, you're just getting back some 3 mana thing that died, and that's mostly okay. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing. And you get your choice of what's in the yard, so there's that. But yeah, I don't know. Patch up, again, I think can see some play, but I don't think we're leaning on that. Truthfully, I think we would just work harder at having shadow or shield counters and stuff to try to keep things alive and get that damage done before we're just going to be worrying about getting stuff out of the graveyard. Rabble Rousing, 4 colorless and a white. Enchantment, Hideaway, 5, meaning you look at the top 5 and then you put something under it. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creature tokens, create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Then, if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exiled card without paying its cost. People have been saying, oh, I can play Rabble Rousing with the fountain. Like, theoretically, yes. However, it's still going to be difficult to get to 15 tokens. And you're talking about a thing that also costs 5, right? So it's not like you're going to have it out early to work with. Now, if you're playing some deck that can ramp into this, I think it's actually kind of neat, because even if you're not worried about getting a whole bunch of tokens, if you ramp into this and you're just attacking with anything of relevance, it's like, okay, cool, I'm attacking with these and I got 2 more creatures or 3 more creatures, right? And it just gets exponential each turn. Especially if your opponent's already in a situation where they're having to deal with like a couple of real creatures, your tokens eventually are just going to get to push through because they're not going to be able to do much about it. So I think this card's definitely playable. I just don't know exactly what it's going to go into yet. I don't know if we're doing it in something where we're trying to get a bunch of citizen tokens. Is it something where we're ramping and just attacking and we're taking advantage of this card's ability? Potentially getting some free card from the Hideaway. I don't know. I think that's the hardest one for me. Like, this is one I'm willing to accept is playable and likely will be played. I just don't know what the deck looks like. Rafine's Guidance. 1 white. Aura. Enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +1/+1. You may cast Rafine's Guidance from your graveyard by paying 2 and a white rather than paying its mana cost. This is really neat because it kind of comes back to things we're talking about, like the Magecraft decks and stuff, right? Like, now, admittedly, this isn't an instant or sorcery to trigger Magecraft, but some of those things in the deck are if you just pay your second spell, or like we saw the other card, right? If it's targeted by a thing, right? This is pretty powerful in those scenarios, and it is only 1 mana. So I think it will find some play, but it has to be in very, very, very specific decks. But getting to play this out of the graveyard is pretty sweet. It's not a huge bonus, but what can you expect for 1 mana? So I will say, I don't think this thing you're just going to be trying to shove into every aggressive white deck, but anytime you need something that needs you to play a second spell or whatever, this is the type of card you're probably looking for. Rafine's Informant, 1 colorless and a white, creature, human, wizard, 2/1. When Rafine's Informant enters the battlefield, it connives. Draw a card, discard a card, put a +1/+1 non-creature, blah blah. Yeah, I think this is just okay. Like, my thought is, with a lot of the connive stuff, right? A lot of it is like, okay, this triggers this one time. But then after that, what do I actually have for the mana? Now, admittedly, this could often be a 2 mana 3/2. And that's fine for 2 mana. We're not going to be upset about that. I don't know. Like, is that enough to say I want to play this in my aggro white decks or whatever? I think part of the problem may be hurting this card is just how many other quality things we have to play. I think that's the real issue. But for 2 mana, it seems reasonable to roll the dice. There'll probably be something you can afford to discard to make this into a 3/2, and that's fair. And it's another counter. So if you have a deck that cares about connive or a deck that cares about counters, it is checking both those boxes, which could be pretty helpful. Refuse to Yield. A colorless and a white. Instant, target creature gets +2/+7 till end of turn, untap it. This is cute. Somebody will play it and surprise me and I'll get smashed in a game but would I recommend anybody play it? No. I think you can just play an actual removal card and do better. But I am tickled by the card being 2/7 and you untap it. So you get to block something. It's going to be fairly large. I mean, your opponent can almost never meat hook it. So, I mean, if meat hook is your nemesis, this could be a real card. Like I said, I'm not sure I'd necessarily recommend it, but the card's not awful. I'll at least say that. Revelation of Power. 1 colorless and a white. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it has a counter on it, it also gains flying and lifelink. This is a good card if you're in the counter decks, right? If you have something that cares about having some type of counter on it. Because getting 2/2 flying and lifelink for 2 mana, that's actually really good. But again, I think we're talking about cards that can only go in certain decks. Like today, earlier, we were playing a deck that had, it was Lesnian with a bunch of +1/+1 counters on things. This is a type of card that can be played in there very well, right? It's cheap to cast, it's instant speed, you get to get lifelink, and you get flying after getting the +2/+2. Like, yeah, this is at least worth considering. Even like as a defensive card or an offensive card, this actually has a lot of value. Now, again, I don't think you're just shoving this into every list, but if you have stuff that has some variety of counters to make it worth it, this could be worth your time. Rumor Gatherer. Colorless, white, 2/1. Elf Wizard. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card. This is like on the cusp of being good enough. Like getting to scry every turn for each thing that comes into play, solid. Getting to draw a card if it's the second creature on the turn, solid. I don't know if that's enough. Like a 3 mana 2/1. Now, admittedly, if you're playing this type of deck, you're probably playing everything that makes tokens or whatever, so you're going to get a lot of triggers. But at some point, let's say even if you get 3 a turn, one of those 3, you're probably, well, one, you're getting to draw a card with, right? The other 2, like you might see a card on top you're going to leave anyway, and just like, so I didn't really get anything out of that third activation. So, I don't know if that's worth it or not. Could be. But I think 3 mana for a 2/1, not particularly what a lot of these decks are going to be looking to do. Sanctuary Warden, 6 mana 5/5, Angel Soldier, flying. When Sanctuary Warden enters the battlefield, it gets 2 shield counters. Whenever Sanctuary Warden enters the battlefield or attacks, you can remove a counter from a creature or planeswalker you control. If you do, draw a card, create a 1/1 citizen. That's a lot for 6 mana. And enough that I'm not even sure how good the card is. Because having 2 shield counters is pretty damn good, right? Somebody has to try to kill this twice in a lot of cases. But if you're in a deck that lets you remove counters from things, every time you attack, you remove a counter, you make a 1/1, and you get a card, that's a lot of value for just a random counter sitting on a thing that you may not even care for, really. Now, it does have the drawback of being 6 mana, and that makes it a lot less exciting because you don't necessarily want this in your opener. But Giada does also help make this cheaper because it's an angel. So maybe that's the new upper end for the Angel decks. I could be talked into that. But yeah, it's a neat card overall. Definitely constructed playable. It's just, what do we do with it? Skycrier. 1 colorless and a white for a 1/1 flying lifelink. Pay 4. You and target opponent each draw a card. We're definitely just not playing this in constructed. There's just, I don't think there's a world you can convince me this is what we want to be playing. I say that. It is both a bird and a citizen. So maybe there's some spots where you want to use it, but it's going to be pretty few and far between, I imagine. Speakeasy Server. 5 mana, 3/3 flying. When the server enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each other creature you control. Yeah, we've had versions of this before too. I mean, so it comes into play, you get to draw, or you get to gain a life for each creature. It has flying, so that's good, but it is 5 mana. And we can't really ignore that. And it happens to be a bird and not an angel, so it doesn't get the Giada benefit here. I don't know. I just don't think this is the type of card we're looking to play at all. It costs 5. There's too many better things we could do at 5. I was taking a moment to try to think of something creative we could do with this, because I don't want to just like write cards off. But this is one I can't imagine any of us wanting to play in constructed. Swooping Protector. 3 colorless and a white. 2/1 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, it has a shield counter on it. This is another one where it's like, the cost doesn't seem egregious, right? It's 2/1, you get a flyer, it has flash, you can wait and do it during your opponent's turn. It gets a shield counter so it can protect itself. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's still just a little 2/1 creature. Probably not good enough. Now again, you can put it in, it could be a random blocker, you remove the counter, and then you get in next turn or whatever, but we're passing on this one too. And that's it, everybody. Be sure to follow if you haven't, subscribe, all that good stuff, because we will be doing these every day until the set goes live, so you get a full set review of the entire set. Plus, we're going to have deck lists coming for New Capenna, some strategies on building 3-color decks. There's just going to be a ton of stuff as we lead up to the set's release, so you don't miss any of that. Remember to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time. Catch you in the next one.